Gabby, flip the camera up. We want to see ourselves.
I don't see how I'm gonna fit. I don't see how I'm gonna fit.
Each category, you go down the row, not across. Dad, don't be an idiot.
Oh, so we're still in technology?
Yes.
Okay.
Dad.
All right.
Instagram events.
I'm sorry.
Oh my god, bro!
What is your...
Track us!
My nose feels runny. Why?
I don't know, maybe you have to get a medal in it?
Oh, shut up, Dad.
Okay.
Like when I wake up in the morning, first thing I do is go on my phone because I want to see what the world's doing. So it's my window to the world.
It's eating schedule. I'm on an eating schedule.
That could possibly be the most annoying thing. To be around somebody who's on an eating schedule. Imagine you're robbing a bank, right? You got your boys with you. You got everybody's laying on the floor, and the dude's thing goes off. He goes, "Dude, what the fuck?" Goes, "Dude, I gotta have a sandwich right now."
I can't believe you're still fucking counting.
Okay.
It's like actually crazy.
I got it.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. But most importantly, subscribe to our wave. Link is in the description box. At the top, kind of.
I would literally immediately exit this video.
ridethewave.com/thevictortwins/post. But for everyone else, welcome back to my true crime. Ding 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 ding. The crowd is going wild. Do you hear that? That's the stadium sold out for this episode of True Crime. Sold out. Today's true crime was emailed and suggested by Madison Hensley. She wants me to cover the Lululemon murder. Thanks, Madison, for your suggestion. And Lululemon is a retail store that sells yoga pants. They probably sell
overpriced.
Yeah, it's basically $100 to $200 on yoga pants. Now, never in my life have I shopped at Lululemon.
But if you want to sponsor us.
No, I would never. I feel like that's very cult-like-ish.
What, Lululemon?
Like selling yoga pants for $100? Are you kidding? Even if I was like a rich mom who had like 6 kids and all I did on my free time was go to yoga classes, I ain't spending no $100 on a pair of yoga pants. I'm going to Marshall's. I'm getting the shit on sale, 2 for $50.
Or the
right?
Amazon leggings, like the ones that I have, that I wear.
Those aren't really yoga leggings, those are just leggings. Yoga pants are yoga pants. They're like it's like workout gear.
Yeah,
their t-shirts on Lululemon are like $50 for a plain white t-shirt that you sweat in. It's like, why am I going to spend $50 on a t-shirt I'm then going to wear to yoga class to then sweat in and then ruin? I just don't understand the concept. But to each his own. Lululemon was founded in 1998. It's a popular store, I suppose. If you like Lululemon, feel free to comment below and let me know what you like about it. And what's the difference between their leggings and, let's say, a pair of leggings from, like Gabby suggested, Amazon or Marshall's, or a place that isn't selling them for $50. I'd love to know what.
They're more than $50, sweetie.
No, I'm saying you can get like 2 pairs of leggings at Marshall's for $50. Lululemon, you can get a t-shirt for $50. Like a basic t-shirt.
Yeah. Like, who's the designer?
There is no designer. It's Lululemon.
She's weird to me.
The Lululemon murder occurred in Bethesda, Maryland, in an area of downtown called Bethesda Row. Lululemon was right next to the Apple store. There was other stores in Bethesda Row, including a bagel shop. I don't know about y'all, but after I spent $100 on a pair of yoga pants, of course I'm gonna wanna go eat some bagels. But I guess the bagel shop was one of the few food places to munch at on Bethesda Road. Bethesda is described as a very wealthy and educated area of Maryland. This crime involved Jayna Murray and Brittany Norwood. Jayna was 30 years old and Brittany was 27 or 28. And I'm gonna say 27 or 28 because a lot of news articles that I read said that she was 28, and then a lot of news reports that I watched on YouTube said that she was 27. So I'm not quite sure if she was 27 or 28, but she was around that age range when this crime occurred. Before I get into the actual crime that was committed, I'm gonna give you some insight on the two women involved in this case. Jayna was 30 years old. She was born on November 22nd, 1980 in Kansas, but then she moved to Texas where she grew up and then somehow ended up in Maryland. Not quite sure how she ended up in Maryland, but that's where she ended up. She was studying and getting ready to get 2 master's degrees from Johns Hopkins University, and in her spare time, she had a part-time job at Lululemon. Jayna was a thrill seeker. She enjoyed activities like bungee jumping, skydiving, and of course, she liked to participate in yoga. So working at Lululemon was the perfect fit. Her coworkers remember her being friendly, outgoing, bubbly, and she got along with mostly all of them. Jayna loved to travel. In fact, she visited every single continent except for Antarctica, which makes me feel like I need to do more with my time, because I don't think I've visited any continent outside of North America, right? We haven't even.
I'm not answering no questions on this.
Why? Because you don't know nothing about continents?
No, we haven't, Danny. Obviously, we haven't. Like, we haven't gone anywhere. We left the country one time.
To Mexico.
No, I went to DR, but
I saw some pictures of DR today on my.
Doesn't it look
Yeah,
so
it looked like so sunny, and I was like, damn, that looks so nice right now. Jayna also had a longtime boyfriend named Frazier, and Frazier was actually looking at engagement rings just weeks before Jayna will unfortunately get murdered. Brittany Norwood was born on May 19th, 1982. The bitch is a f***ing tourist, and we don't claim her. No, we do not. We do not claim this Taurus,
Wait,
alright? May 19th, like a day after our birthday.
Yeah, she's big Taurus energy.
Yeah.
Tauruses
are psycho. The last true crime I did, she was a Taurus too. I'm like, what's happening? This is not good. The Ken and Barbie killers, Carla Homolka, she was a Taurus. It's like, we don't claim them. They are not Taurus. They have Gemini running through their veins,
or
for
Sagittarius.
sure. A Sagittarius before a Taurus. Brittany's family was rather large. She had 4 brothers and 4 sisters. Now I can go ahead and assume that any parents that have 9 children total aren't giving as much attention to all 9 children as they would if they had 1, 2, or 3 children. Even 3 is a lot to juggle. So 9 children seems a little hectic. I can imagine that having 9 children is not an easy task. Gabby has 1, and that's not easy. I can't imagine having 2 or 3, let alone 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 9. Sorry, not 10.
Definitely not.
So I can imagine that not one kid in that family got undivided attention. They probably all got attention because it is said that she came from a loving home who were super close-knit, tight, loved each other. But I still, even with loving each other and being a close, tight-knit family, I can't imagine their parents being able to give every single kid as much attention as the other kid, because that's 9, I repeat, 9 children. For example, think of Kevin from Home Alone. The whole night before they went to Paris, they were screaming at Kevin, hated Kevin, called him a dweeb, and then they didn't even notice that he wasn't at the airport. How is the most annoying, yelled at kid out of the family completely unnoticeable and unaccounted for at the airport? It's because it's impossible to give every person in a large family undivided attention. So I'm gonna go ahead and assume that that's gonna be an issue for some children, because not getting attention from your parents equals having some issues, period. Now, there wasn't anything traumatic online about Brittany's childhood. The only thing that I found online about Brittany's childhood was that in school, she liked to play sports. In fact, she made the soccer team. She dreamed of being a part of a team. She finally made the soccer team. However, shortly after she joined the soccer team, her teammates started noticing that shit was missing from their lockers. It would be a bracelet or a keychain or a hairbrush or $1 or $2 bills that were loose in someone's bag, but things were missing, and they were missing so often that it wasn't just coincidental items that you might have misplaced or lost. They believed that someone was stealing from them. And then the teammates all got together and they had a discussion about it, and they realized that the stealing started when Brittany joined the team. So they confronted Brittany about stealing, and she admitted to being the thief. She apologized, she said she made a mistake, and that she would never do it again. However, the team, like most human beings, don't f with stealers, and they don't with liars. So they started cutting her from games. They stopped hanging out with her outside of school. So she lost her teammates and she lost the soccer team. And that had some mental strain on her mental health. She started to spiral out of control. Eventually she made some other friends, but it is said that Brittany had trouble her entire life with stealing. I don't know much about being a klepto. I don't know if that's technically a mental illness or just an adrenaline rush. I don't know how someone earns the title of being a klepto, but Brittany started stealing and it was a habit that she couldn't break. She just kept stealing from anyone, anywhere. And me, when I read about her childhood and having 9 brothers and sisters, she probably started when she was young. She probably started taking from her sisters and her brothers just to see if anyone would notice, to try and get some attention, because she was probably lacking attention from her parents and her siblings, and maybe she did that as something that would give her attention from someone in her family, like acting out so she could get in trouble and then get attention from her parents and or siblings. And then that learned behavior that she started when she was younger just carried on into her adult life. But I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, you guys. I don't know why she became a klepto, but she started stealing sometime, somewhere, and then she stole from the soccer team, and she kept stealing and stealing and stealing. And this will be why the Lululemon murder happens in Bethesda, Maryland on March 12th, 2011. Brittany got a job at Lululemon as a part-time job, but she really was waiting to get a job at Equinox. In fact, she had an interview at Equinox a couple of days after the murder happened. Jayna, on the other hand, had been working at Lululemon for quite some time. She was a manager, not a top manager, but she was a manager of the store to some extent. On March 12th, 2011, right before 8 a.m., Rachel, who was a store manager at Lululemon, who actually lived across the street from Lululemon, headed to the store to open. When she got there, she noticed that the door was unlocked, which was odd because obviously no one has been there since closing time. She walked into the store and she noticed that things were misplaced. There was a mannequin on the floor. There was a few items also tossed all over the floor. And she was like, doesn't really look like a robbery because the place didn't look ransacked. But she knew something was off. As she started to go deeper into the store, she heard some weird noises. So in a panic, she ran outside. At the same time, right next door, there was an Apple store and they had a long line outside because that day, Apple was launching a new iPad. This dude, Ryan, was standing in the line at Apple and saw Rachel run out of Lululemon in a state of pure panic. So like any good, decent man, he left his spot in the Apple line to go check on her. She told him what she saw. She's like, I walked in, it looked like there could potentially be a robbery. I started hearing some noises. I don't really want to go back in. Ryan told Rachel that he'd been standing in the Apple line for about an hour or two, and in that hour or two, he had not seen anyone come or go from the Lululemon store. So if it was before 8 a.m. and Ryan was in the Apple line for an hour or two, that means he's been there since about 6 a.m. Like a good Samaritan, Ryan offers to go into the store with Rachel to take a look around to make sure that there's no one in there trying to rob the place, and so she wasn't alone because she was obviously petrified. Ryan and Rachel head into Lululemon and they start looking around. All the cash registers were open and all the money was gone. There was also safes. The safes were open and the money was gone. They go into a back room. The back room had shattered glass everywhere, clothes thrown everywhere, some cabinets and drawers open, and blood, a lot of blood. There was actually a trail of blood going from the back room and even further to the back of the store. There was also a trail of bloody footprints, but the footprints start to fade right before the main room. On one of the walls in the back room looked like almost like a smudged palm print, like as if someone was trying to lift themselves up or get up with the edge of their hand. Out of fear, Rachel says that she's going to stay in the main room and she's going to call 911. Ryan, like a curious, decent human being, was like, I'm going to go check out the rest of the store and see where this trail of blood takes me. The trail of blood led Ryan to a dead body. He found what he assumed to be a woman because of the length of her hair, laying flat on her stomach, face down, in a puddle of her own blood. And there was so much blood that the puddle wasn't like what you would think a puddle. It was almost like a pool of blood. She was laying in a pool of her own blood. She was not breathing. She also had a rope wrapped around her neck. The woman that he found dead and not breathing was Jayna. Ryan starts freaking out because he wasn't expecting to see this, especially when he just was trying to get a new iPad. He starts to head back to the front of the store to go tell Rachel that she absolutely needs to tell 911 to immediately get here when he hears a noise coming from another room. Again, like a decent, good Samaritan, he decides that he's going to go figure out where the noise is coming from. He ends up in the employee's bathroom where he finds another woman tied up, which was Brittany Norwood. Brittany was also covered in blood, definitely not as much blood as Jayna, but she was tied up. She had gashes on her forehead, on her stomach, legs, and arms, but she was still alive and breathing. Brittany's hands and her feet were zip tied together. Brittany was actually face up when Ryan found her, so her wounds were more visible. Ryan recalls them looking like slashes instead of stab wounds, almost as if they were done with a razor blade. He runs to the front. He tells Rachel that two women were in the back. One was dead and the other was found breathing, and she needed to call 911 and tell them to bring an ambulance as soon as possible. Rachel, realizing that the two women must have been Jayna and Brittany, who were scheduled to close the night before.
911, what is the emergency? There's two people in the back of my store. One person seems dead and the other person is breathing. The door was open this morning. I think one of my managers came in to open it. Someone tied her up. I need an ambulance right away.
Police and paramedics arrive at the scene. Paramedics rush to Brittany, who is still breathing. They find her in the bathroom. Her shirt is lifted up, but her breasts aren't exposed, so only her stomach is kind of showing. Her leggings were still on, but her crotch area was cut out, which suggested to police that the attack was a sexual assault. There was also a bloody rock next to Brittany in the bathroom, and they assume the attackers probably used that to knock Brittany out because she had a huge gash on her forehead. Also, Brittany had a Lululemon shirt tied around her neck. It wasn't strangling her or anything, it was just tied around her neck, which was kind of weird to police because they were like, why does she just have a random shirt tied around her neck if the person didn't use it to strangle her? She didn't even have marks on her neck to suggest that somebody was pulling it tight enough to attempt to strangle her. It was just almost as if a Lululemon shirt was placed there around her neck for absolutely no reason. A blood trail and also bloody footprints led to the back emergency exit. There was fingerprints on the door handle, and there was also a size 14 men's shoe still at the scene of the crime. It's like, why would the attacker leave one shoe at the scene of the crime? It's a little odd. But there was one shoe and bloody footprints that were in the size of that shoe. So police assume that one of the women tried to escape in the emergency exit, and then the attacker pulled them back. The emergency exit had an alarm system triggered to it, so if it opened without the keys, the alarm would be triggered and it would go off. The keys, which were obviously Jayna's, because Jayna was the manager, were in the doorway. So they assumed probably tried to escape, put the keys in the doorway, and then was pulled back to her attacker before she was killed. Police opened the emergency exit though, and there was absolutely no blood outside. Not even a drop of blood was outside the emergency exit door. Also, weird things that were at the scene of the crime was a bloody clothing hanger and also emptied Windex bottles. Now, police were like, did the killer or killers try to clean up with Windex? Why were these bottles of Windex empty? It was just weird and misplaced. Paramedics rushed to Jayna's body, where they found her again in a pool of blood, just like Ryan found her, and there was a toolbox rested on top of her body. The toolbox actually belonged to the Lululemon store for employees to use if they needed around the store. Most of the tools from the box were still in the box. However, there were other tools scattered around the room near Jayna's body that were used as weapons to murder her during her attack. Police already noticed a size 14 footprint, but they also noticed a second footprint that was a woman's shoe and much smaller. The footprints all walk in one direction, so the size 14 would be walking this way over the smaller size shoe, but they would never be coming back in the opposite direction, which was weird. So let's say the smaller shoe size walked north, then the size 14 would walk north, and there would be no footprints coming back. And also, it was always the size 14 walking over the smaller size shoe, and it was never the smaller size shoe over the 14th. It's almost as if someone put on a different size shoe and walked over another set of prints just to cover it up. The police thought that was very weird. Jayna was announced dead at the scene, and her body was removed and brought in for an autopsy. The autopsy revealed that Jayna's body received 331 different wounds, and those are the ones that they could count. She could have possibly received more. Most of these were stab wounds. The other wounds were received from being beaten. The medical examiner that performed the autopsy said in his entire career he had never seen more defensive wounds on one single person. So, Jayna put up a fight. 200 of the wounds were on her face, head, and neck, and the remaining 131 were on the rest of her body, arms, legs, and torso, and her back. Most of the skin on her face was missing because she had so many stab wounds, but on her skull, but on her skull she had 13 different fractures. Her skull had been so badly beaten that it actually caved inwards. Experts believe that Jayna was alive for her entire attack. She felt every single cut and stab wound, and it was actually the final blow that ultimately killed her. She got stabbed in the back of her neck, which severed her spinal cord and killed her. So this woman got attacked, stabbed 331 times, and out of those 331 times, only one killed her. That is the most heinous thing I have ever heard in my entire fucking life.
You gotta be really crazy to even have it in you to stab someone 300
That's
times.
what the
Could you
joke.
imagine how crazy, what kind of rage you're in, that you're like, you lost count because you're just a fucking Looney Tune, bro.
Well, not only that, she kept switching weapons.
Fucking weirdo.
Yeah. It's estimated that at least 6 different weapons were used during Jayna's attack. A knife, a hammer, a wrench, a rope, box cutters, and a metal pole from one of the mannequins found from the store. Clumps of Jayna's hair were found all around the store. Police assumed that was from her being dragged from one room to the next room to the next room. They also found clumps of her own hair in her hands, clenched in her fist. They're not sure how that happened, but I assume if she was defending herself and had defensive wounds, she might have been grabbing onto her hair as tight as she possibly could to protect her scalp from it being hit by whatever weapon the killer was using. Brittany was also brought to the hospital, but her injuries were very minor considering how brutally murdered Jayna was. At the hospital, they realized that she had cuts on her arms, legs, and her stomach area. She also had a 1 to 2 inch cut in between her thumb and her index finger. Her injuries were not serious enough for them not to question her. So they decided to question her that day at the hospital. Brittany told police that her and Jayna were scheduled to work till 9:45. At 9:45, they closed up shop and went their separate ways. Jayna drove while Brittany took the subway. Brittany said she made it all the way to the subway station when she realized she left her wallet and her Metro card back at Lululemon. Jayna had a pair of keys to get in and out of the store because she was a manager. Brittany was not. At this point, Brittany had only been working at Lululemon for about 6 weeks. So Brittany starts texting other coworkers whose number she had and was asking for Jayna's number. She eventually got it, called her, explained the situation, and asked if she could meet her back at the store so she could get her wallet and her Metro card. Jayna coincidentally left her laptop at the store and said, "That works out fine. I'll grab my laptop anyway. I left it there." Jayna heads back to the store, parks illegally right out front of Lululemon, according to Brittany. She opens the door. They're both searching around the store. Jayna gets her laptop, but Brittany can't find her wallet or her Metro card. Jayna eventually says, "Hey, I'm driving. I don't need my Metro card today. Why don't you just take my Metro card for the night and you can bring it in at your next shift?" Brittany then explained to cops that as they were leaving the store or about to, 2 masked men, one was tall and one was short, came into the store wearing ski masks. Now when Jayna and Brittany went into the store to grab their things, they didn't put on the lights and they left the door unlocked because of course they thought they were going to be in and out, just grabbing their things and heading home like any other normal evening. However, on this night, because they left the door open, 2 masked men came in as they were about to leave. for the second time. Brittany told police that the two men came in, attacked them, and bound them both. He said they were both sexually assaulted, and the taller man grabbed Jayna by her hair and dragged her into another room, and she couldn't see Jayna from that moment forward. The smaller dude took Brittany to the cash registers, forced her to take out all the cash and give it to him. She then said after she gave him all the money, her attacker brought her to a different room, tied her up, raped her, left for a brief period of time, came back and sexually assaulted her with a hanger. She said the entire time she could hear Jayna screaming and crying from another room, but she couldn't see her.
There were lots of people around at the time that a terrible crime happened inside the Lululemon store on Bethesda Avenue Friday night. A timeline released by police indicates employees closed the store at 9 p.m., then set the alarm and locked the door at 9:45. At 10:05 p.m., two female employees returned to pick up a forgotten item. That's when two men wearing ski masks and gloves entered behind them. Another employee found the victims when she arrived to open the store at 8 a.m. Saturday. Police think it was a crime of opportunity, a robbery that turned into rape and murder. 30-year-old Jayna Murray is described as a valiant fighter who would not have hesitated to protect herself and her 27-year-old co-worker who was beaten but survived. The crime scene may hold the best leads police have at this point.
We are still in the process of collecting physical evidence and doing forensic analysis. My hope is that in the next few days we may get additional leads as a result of that forensic analysis.
The attack in the heart of downtown Bethesda has residents and the business community.
2 days after Jayna's murder, police interviewed Brittany again. They interviewed Brittany at her home this time. Brittany told police that the attackers threw her onto Jayna's body. She also told police that she was terrified because they called her racial slurs. They knew her name and her home address and called her names like dirty little slut. Brittany also told police that the men didn't kill her, especially her attacker, because he said she was fun to. So in the entire Bethesda row, only one store had a security camera outside of their store, and that was Apple. So police take the security footage from outside the store, and they see in the footage two white men, one tall, one short, walking past the Apple store at around the same time that Jayna and Brittany would have been leaving work. So they put this security footage all over the news, asking people to come forward if they know anything about these two male suspects. They even offer a $150,000 reward to anyone who could lead them to these two male suspects who they believe committed this heinous murder and rapes. But no one ever came forward. No one ever had information because these two men didn't do it. Now, a detective that was working on the case actually decided that he was going to park his vehicle outside of Lululemon like he was doing a stakeout and just sit there and wait to see if the two male suspects were dumb enough to go back to the scene of the crime where they committed the murder and rape. So for hours he sat in front of Lululemon and he watched people walk up the street and down the street and up the street and down the street, and lo and behold, the two men that look like the two men from the security footage, one tall, one short, start walking down the street. So the cop hops out of his car and he decides to question them. He's like, hey, hate to bother you guys, but do you happen to know who these two men are in the security footage? And the two guys were like, yeah, that's us. So the cop's thinking he finally has a break in his case, but he doesn't. The two guys are dressed in all black because they work at a restaurant as busboys and their uniforms require them to wear all black. And the only reason they were walking past the Apple store and Lululemon at the same time Jayna and Brittany were getting out of work is because they were getting off their shift. And they walked together because they both live in the same direction. So the detective realizes that these aren't the two men he's looking for and they're back at square one. So while investigators are trying to come up with any new leads whatsoever because they're back at square one, they decide to interview surrounding stores and employees from other stores to see if they might have heard or seen anything that might help their case. So investigators start interviewing Apple employees who admit that on the night of Jayna's murder, they heard through the walls screaming, squealing, dragging, things falling to the ground, thumping, and things banging around. One of the employees admits that she heard a woman say, "Talk to me, don't do this. Talk to me, what is going on?" Another employee admits that she heard somebody, another woman, say, "God help me, please help me," which is believed to have been Jayna's last words. One of the employees told investigators that she heard the screaming and the squealing and went right up to the store security guard, and the security guard went up to the wall in the store with her. They both heard screaming and squealing. In fact, they put their ears up to the wall. The security guard banged the wall, basically to tell them to shut up and keep it down, but no one ever went over. No security guard ever went to the store. No one in the Apple store called 911. No one did anything at all. Now, Apple and its employees all were under scrutiny because the security footage of them going up to the wall with their ears and listening to basically the murder at Lululemon happening, it didn't go well with the public. The public was pissed. I mean, as they should be.
So you hear someone dying and you're doing nothing?
Absolutely nothing.
That's crazy.
Employees at Apple told police that they thought the screaming and the yelling was just co-worker drama. Now, I don't know about y'all, but when I used to work at like Baker's Shoes, does anyone remember Baker's Shoes? We had drama in that store, but no one would ever yell at the other person. We might pop an attitude. We might look at the other person like they're crazy, but no one would ever be yelling, especially yelling to the point that it's so loud that you can hear it all the way at another store directly next door. And if that's the type of environment that Apple thinks Lululemon is, doesn't sound like a good environment to work in, because no workplace should allow that type of behavior to happen, whether there's drama or not between employees. But I don't know how those people sleep at night. If it were me, I would never sleep again. If I had the ability, if I actually heard a murder happen and the next morning I wake up and find out that a murder occurred at the store next door and I heard it, I would feel like the biggest piece of shit on the face of the planet ever. Now, if the security guard actually gave a fuck about being a security guard and was like, "Oh my god, this is what I signed up for, this is what I got a job for, I'm gonna go next door and check," the dude might have saved her life. If the employees at Apple picked up the phone and called 911 and said, "Hey, there might just be drama going on next door, but there's a lot of screaming and yelling and squealing and banging and what sounds like dragging going on at Lululemon. Can you go check it out?" They could have saved her life, but they didn't do shit. It's unbelievable. Makes me sick, actually. Apple employees said they started hearing screaming and thumping and things falling down at Lululemon about 10 or 15 minutes after 10 p.m. Now, Rachel, the store employee who was helping investigators, checked their computer system and said the alarm was first set for the store at 9:45. It was then disarmed at 10:05, which means they arrived back at Lululemon at 10:05, which means within that 5 minutes, Jayna was attacked and then murdered. And Jayna's attack lasted, in the reports that I read, between 17 and 20 minutes. That's a long time. But those times line up with what Apple had told police. Police asked Brittany to come into the police station on March 16th to give samples of her blood and hair to eliminate her from the crime scene. She agreed. When she was at the police station, they asked her if she knew what Jayna's car looked like. She told police no. However, initially she told police that Jayna parked her car illegally in front of the store when she got back to the store because she thought she was going to be in and out and ready to go. However, when Rachel arrived at the store on March 12th, Jayna's car was not illegally parked in front of the store, so where was it? And that also proves that Brittany was lying. A police officer that actually was patrolling around Bethesda Row that evening remembers seeing Jayna's car at a parking lot around midnight, and the reason he remembers seeing her car is because Jayna had Texas plates. She did not have Maryland plates, she had Texas plates, so he remembers seeing the vehicle because he remembers the Texas plates. He said at around midnight the car was parked in a parking lot, the lights were on, and there was someone sitting in the passenger seat. He said about 2 hours later, at 2 a.m., he was still patrolling that same area. He saw the car again, still parked at that parking lot, but the lights were off and nobody was in it. This particular police officer brought the other officers to the parking lot where he saw the car, and lo and behold, Jayna's car was still parked in that parking lot. They tow it, they impound it, and they obviously do their thing, and they test the entire vehicle for forensics, DNA, and blood. However, those results, the forensics, the DNA, and the blood in a vehicle, it'll all take a couple of days before they knew if there was anything in that vehicle that could help them solve this case. On March 17th, Brittany's brother Chris and her sister Marissa called the police station saying that Brittany had information but was scared to come forward. The police were like, oh, well, what's this information? Her brother and her sister told police that Brittany was forced before her sexual assault by her attackers to move Jayna's vehicle. And she's been so scared and petrified for her own life that she hadn't told police about this. Sounds super believable to me. After hearing this information from Brittany's brother and sister, they organized a meeting with Brittany. At this point, forensics from Jayna's car had arrived and Brittany's blood was in the vehicle. Now, they thought this might not be weird because if both women were sexually assaulted and attacked in the store and then the attackers moved Jayna's car, then that would explain how Brittany's blood got in the car. However, Brittany left a baseball cap in Jayna's car, and in the baseball cap was blood right on the rim where the forehead would be. And if you guys don't remember, Brittany had a huge gash on her forehead that needed stitches that would have been bleeding when she wore a baseball cap. She basically gave herself away by leaving her own baseball cap in the vehicle like a dumbass. But hey, thank you, Brittany. So police are interviewing her and they asked Brittany, how was your blood in the vehicle if you were tied up and raped? And Brittany explains to them that she was forced to move Jayna's car before she was sexually assaulted. They gave her the keys to Jayna's vehicle. They told her that if she even made a peep or a sound, they would kill her, and that as soon as she parked the car, that she better hurry up and come back because they weren't done with her yet. So cops asked her, well, why didn't you just use that opportunity to escape and run? And she told police that she was petrified for her life. That's not even believable. If my attacker told me to move a vehicle, and then I moved the vehicle 3 blocks from where they were attacking me, no way in hell I'm ever going back. I'm taking the vehicle, I'm going to the closest 911 sheriff station, and I'm telling them everything. So right then and there, police are already not believing her story. She even admits to police that she saw a police officer while she was moving Jayna's car and was too petrified to even say anything to him because she thought she was going to be killed for it. Again, cops don't believe a word she's saying.
Is how it that night played out. Prior to him sexually assaulting me and zip tying me, they made me move her car.
Okay.
I know where her car is. And they seemed to know where it was, where she was parked.
Okay.
They asked, they said, where are her keys? I have no idea. One of them punched me in my head and made me look through her coat and her bag for them. When I finally found them, they said if I was to pass to anyone and open my mouth, I can consider myself dead. And that one of them would be watching the entire time. And I honestly don't remember the exact lot, but they said to, like, I don't know, like, cross, it's almost like on the other side of Wisconsin or something.
Okay.
From that street. I remember seeing a cop and I was just too scared to even flag him down, do anything.
Was that like when you left the store or when you were parked?
When I left the store.
So when you first left the
How
store?
did you fall onto Jayna? I mean, were you on your hands and your knees or straight down, face down?
On my knees.
Okay. Were you straddling her or were you actually physically like pancaked on top of her or what?
They pushed me on her and he touched her head.
You touched her head? With what?
And it slid to the ground.
Okay, so your hands got in the blood on either side of her?
Yes.
Okay. I know it's hard.
And blood all over.
You had blood all over you? And then what? And what, did he say anything to you when he pushed you down?
It's my fault.
Okay.
this is because of you.
Nobody in the world is going to believe this story.
Now, before all this evidence came in, there was only one other suspect, and it was this homeless guy named Keith. Now, Keith was a regular at a bar, and on the night of the murder, he just happened to not be at the bar. He got arrested for a completely different charge, but they also decided that they would question him about the Lululemon attack. He had blood on his clothes, but it was not enough blood to have possibly commit the heinous attack that was done on Jayna. Eventually, he was ruled out. Now, all of a sudden, the forensics from the vehicle and bits and pieces of Brittany's story are not adding up. The evidence that has been found in this case does not corroborate Brittany's story. In fact, Brittany told police that both her and Jayna were sexually assaulted and raped by these two men. However, during the autopsy and even in Brittany's rape kit that she took at the hospital the day she was questioned, both came out that neither woman was raped or sexually assaulted. So she made that entire part of the story up. The zip ties that Brittany had on her hands and feet, the feet were fine. However, the zip tie she had wrapped around her wrist had teeth marks in them, which means she tied herself up. At this point, cops start digging into Brittany's past. They're like, okay, we need to know more about this chick. And they find out that she previously had a restraining order against her from her ex-boyfriend. At some point, her ex-boyfriend was like, I don't want to be with you anymore. And Brittany did not handle that rejection well. He ended up having a new girlfriend. Now that he has a new girlfriend, it set her into some type of psychosis. Broke into his home with his new girlfriend, stole a bunch of their items and their things, and he then got a restraining order. Just 2 weeks after he got a restraining order out on Brittany, she showed up to his job, parked her car right across his work window, and was staring at him through the window. Yeah, sis, like that is really gonna help you win him back. It's seriously something that me and Gabby have watched in a Lifetime movie before. It's just not normal behavior. She's obviously not mentally okay. Now, Rachel is also still helping police during this entire investigation. And during this investigation, Rachel informs the police that just like Brittany's soccer team, employees at Lululemon suspected Brittany of stealing. In the 6 weeks that Brittany was working at Lululemon, people noticed items from their work lockers and their purses going missing, whether it be a couple dollars from their wallet, travel size perfume, a hand lotion, a necklace, something from someone's bag every time Brittany worked would go missing. The store actually had a meeting without Brittany present where they discussed how they all agreed that it was Brittany stealing. And they all agreed that the next time someone caught Brittany in the act of stealing, she would be fired. A day before Jayna's murder, Jayna called Rachel on the phone and told Rachel she suspected of Brittany stealing again. So at the end of the night, in the employee handbook, they have a strict check your bag policy at Lululemon. So one employee can check another employee's bag and vice versa to make sure that employees are not stealing from the store. Jayna asked Brittany if she could check her bag for a pair of leggings. Brittany said that she bought the pair of leggings and her bag was already checked and that so-and-so employee already checked it. So Jayna calls this employee to fact check Brittany's story. The employee's like, no, she didn't buy a pair of leggings and no, I didn't check her bag. So Jayna knew that Brittany had stolen a pair of leggings from the store and she was about to be fired. So police came to the conclusion that out of fear of losing her job and not being able to work at Equinox, which is what she was waiting to do, she panicked, called Jayna to meet her back at the store and tried to reason with Jayna about the leggings. And Jayna was like, probably like, no, I have to report this. You're gonna have to face the repercussions of your actions. And thinking that maybe if Jayna was murdered, she wouldn't be able to speak or tell anyone, not realizing that Jayna already told Rachel and already reported it. So in a panic, she killed Jayna to shut her up so she wouldn't lose her job and her opportunity to work at Equinox. What a pathetic reason to kill somebody. And not only that, she killed her in the most heinous way possible. As they continue their investigation, they realize that the wound in between Brittany's thumb and her index finger was a result from holding a blade, which is when she was probably holding one of the numerous weapons she used to kill Jayna. They also realized that the cuts and the slashes found on Brittany's body were self-inflicted. They did not come from another person. Also, when paramedics and police arrived at the scene, Brittany's hands were placed above her head in zip ties. But she wasn't tied up, so police thought it was sketchy that her hands were just placed above her head. Why didn't she crawl to a section of the store where she could have used one of the weapons to untie herself? Or why didn't she crawl out of the store to try to get help from someone outside of the store? None of that part of the story made sense. She waited all night long next to a body that she killed, and when she heard someone coming or knew someone was coming, she placed the hands above her head in a posed position to look like she just stayed there all night. The blood that she was covered in was actually Jayna's, not her own. They found paper towels at the crime scene filled with Jayna's blood. So Brittany took paper towels, went to the puddle of blood that was caused by the injury she gave Jayna, soaked her blood in the paper towels, and then washed her body in it so it looked like she was bleeding more than she actually was when police arrived. She's on March 18th, a week after Jayna was murdered, Brittany was arrested for first-degree murder. Brittany's lawyers argued for second-degree murder. They said that she had some type of mental illness and that the mental illness was brought out or threw her in a fit of rage the night of the murder of Jayna. Her lawyer argued that no one in their sane mind could kill someone by stabbing them 331 times. Someone who was of sane mind would know at some point enough is enough, but Brittany kept stabbing her, changing weapons, stabbing her, changing weapons, and stabbing her over and over and over again, which he argued was the actions of someone who was not mentally okay. Her lawyer also tried to say that if this murder was premeditated, she wouldn't have called around to her other co-workers asking for Jayna's number, which would mean that she was the last person with Jayna. That's basically saying, hey, I'm gonna kill her tonight. It just didn't make sense. However, in Maryland, under Maryland state law, premeditation can happen within minutes. In less than 1 hour, the jury found Brittany Norwood guilty of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. In 2015, Brittany actually requested a new trial, and her request was denied. So that is a very horrible case. It's a very weird case. I guess my whole thing is I don't understand Brittany's mental health. What turned her from a thief to a stone cold killer? It's not like she just killed her accidentally by pushing her and she hit her head. She stabbed her so many times. The amount of rage that had to been boiling in her veins for her to kill someone in such a manner doesn't make sense to me. Did she have a pent-up anger towards Jayna before this night happened? Did she just hate people in general? Is it everything at that very moment just came to surface and her whole life exploded and Jayna was just a victim of that happening? I don't know. It's just very creepy, and it makes me happy I don't work a 9-to-5 or any type of job, because you just don't even know who you're working with. I don't know how her family, either family gets over that, because Brittany's family was close-knit and tight, and how are you actually close-knit and tight if you don't see that your daughter is not doing well or your brother and sister needs help? Like, as soon as she got a restraining order, her family should have known something was off. I don't know. I got no words. You got any words, Gabby? Very, very sad case. Anyways, this is today's true crime video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Lululemon, now anytime I see an ad or a commercial for that, it's probably the only thing I'm ever going to think about is this story and how horrible it was. And Brittany, God, I wonder if anyone's like tried to interview her while she's in jail to ask her like, what happened? Why did you do this? Because we never really actually got an answer. She actually apologized to the Murray family after sentencing and asked if they could find some forgiveness in their hearts. No, they're never gonna have forgiveness for you, girl. You took their daughter away over a goddamn pair of Lululemon leggings. Really, at the end of the day. Sickening. Anyways, give this video a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but as I always say, if you're giving it a thumbs down, you probably shouldn't be on this channel. But if you are gonna be here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, but also hit the bell, because if you don't hit the bell, you will not get notifications, and if you don't get notifications, what is the point? There is none. Don't forget to subscribe to our Wave channel. Link is in the description box. ridethewave.com/thevictortwins/post for all our exclusive content, story times, vlog, try on hauls, you name it, it's all on Wave. All my social media is also in the description box below. I love you guys to the moon and back. Be safe out there, and don't steal, don't lie, and don't be murderers ever, because no one ever gets away with murder. Even though that show was great, How to Get Away with Murder, you're never gonna get away with it. You're going to jail. You're gonna get caught. They always do.